I have here a magic frame, and you can put inside of it different words or images and have them magically transform into the other. So I'm going to show you a little routine just to demonstrate how it works. We're going to play a game of 20 questions. So the frame is thinking of an animal, and let's ask it some questions. Does your animal live in the ocean? No. Okay. Does your animal live on land? Yes. Does your animal have 4 legs? No. Does your animal have wings? Yes. Okay, so it lives on land, it doesn't have 4 legs, and it has wings. So we can probably be pretty sure that our animal is not a rabbit. So we can sort this out. There we go. Now we have a bird. So if you'd like to know how this works, you can, or you'd like to make one of these frames yourself and put in your own images or words, then you can order these on my website. You can order the physical kit, or you can download the laser cut plans to make your own. And then you can open the web app and pull in different images or type in your own words that will suit your specific performance. So we're going to jump over to the web app now, and I'll show you how that works. So here we are on the website contraptioncart.com, and we're on the Magic Frame page. So if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll find the Open the Web App. So click on that, and it's going to launch this web app. So it'll launch with the yes/no words sitting here. So you can now see how this frame works. We've got the 2 words interlaced together, the no and the yes, and the screen that goes over the top. And so the screen masks the other word until you slide the screen across by one whole width, and then it masks the other word. So you can switch between the 2 words by sliding the screen back and forth. So let's have a look at the app. So if we go up to File, here you can load some of the preloaded images and words that I've put in. So at the moment we've got yes, no. Let's go down to dove, rabbit. And now if it doesn't load automatically, just press this generate button. There we go. So there's the dove and the rabbit interlaced together and the corresponding screen. And you can click on print, and that'll ask you for your page dimensions. So if you put in your page dimensions in millimeters, this helps you to print to the exact correct scale so that it fits inside the frame. And so 210 by 297 millimeters is for an A4 page. And then when you click OK, it'll download it as a PDF that you then need to print without scaling, so 100%, no borders or margins, and then it should be the correct size. And you can always measure the top to make sure that it corresponds with the size written up there. So this size says 181 millimeters. Our frame, the standard frame that I sell, is actually 180 by 100, but I've added on this little 0.5 around the whole border, around the whole perimeter, acts as a little bit of a bleed, and that's to give you a bit of a buffer, so that, because you want it to be nice and snug inside the frame. So if you cut it, I find if you cut it to the maximum edge, it seems to fit quite nicely. But you can always cut off slithers if it's not tight enough. Sorry, if it's not loose enough. Okay, so then you can save. Save as here means to save your project. So any current project you have, it saves as a text file that you can then load in again later. So let's hide this file menu. We'll miss frame settings for now. Let's go down to state 1 and state 2. So these are the 2 different states that you have. So let's just go back to our yes, no. Okay, it's easier to edit from that state. So now we can start our own one. Let's take the yes and let's put in hello. Alright, you can now see hello has appeared there. And we can change the scale of it. So we can drag this slider to make it fit more nicely. And you can move the X and Y positions as well to try and get it nicely centered. And you want a bit of a border around the outside so that there's none of the images hidden. Alright, so we've got it at, let's make the Y a nice round number of 70. So, and maybe we'll make it 53% was actually pretty good. Okay, 53, 6, and 70. Okay, and now let's go down here and look at state 2. So we've got no still there. But let's put in by. And we can scale it as well. We'll put it the same as the other one. So we'd 53% scale. 6 and 70. And let's just move the X dimension across a bit to center that by. And so you can also rotate using this degree option here. So you can rotate it and then move it about. But it's best if we just leave this one up in horizontal. Okay, so and now this is something you have ready to save and work on again later, or to print as a PDF. So now let's demonstrate dragging in a picture. So let's get rid of any of the messages and choose an image file here. So media picker. Okay, let's pick this little bird over here. Alright, and here it is down here now. We just need to get it into the frame a bit more and change the size of it. So when you drag in your images, if you're going to have more than one image, so if it was just a bird on its own, then this will be fine. You can make it disappear and reappear. If you're going to have more than one image, like the rabbit changing into the bird, then you need to make sure that your images don't have any white background, that they are actually transparent, so they've got a mask on them when you make them. So they could be an SVG, exported SVG, so it'll accept JPEG or PNG, but make sure there's no white background when you pull it in. Alright, and again you can now print or save this file. Let's look at the frame settings. So you probably don't need to touch the DPI. So the width or the height, if you want to make a frame that has different dimensions to the standard frame, so maybe you've bought the laser cutting plans and you've managed to adapt it to a different size, then you can change the frame size here to match your desired size. So look, now we're making it a bit smaller. Let's make it 100 by 100. And now you can see it's a square. And you can also make it higher, taller. And let's just move our little bird to put her back in the center there. And now you can also change the bleed setting. So if you find that 0.5 of a millimeter isn't necessary or it's not enough, then you can always add more bleed. You can see that's getting thicker. Just gives you a bit more of a margin to try and get a nice snug fit, because you want these images to align nice and accurately. And then we have the hole setting. So at the moment I have 2 millimeters, which I find is pretty good for getting an image that's not too coarse, but if you make it any smaller, then it makes it hard to properly mask out each image and you end up getting sort of ghosting appearing. So you can see it actually changes the hole size if you drag this parameter. But yeah, 2 millimeters I find is best. And you do have to work in millimeters for these. Okay, so that's the app. I'll now take you through putting together the example. So here we have our images printed on white paper and our screens printed on transparency film. And you can see that if we line them up nicely, we can get one of the images to be masked out completely, and by shifting it, then the other image gets masked out and the other one appears. Right, so you can print you have to print the screen on the transparency film. You can print the images on transparency as well. I do find that gives less of a contrasting effect, a contrasting image, but it is a bit more forgiving in terms of not seeing any ghosting of the masked out image. So that's a choice up to you. If you do use transparency film for both, then I recommend getting a bit of talcum powder, baby powder, just from the supermarket, and give that a bit of a dusting and a wipe over your image, not so that it makes it white, but so that it pretty much disappears, but it just stops any static build-up that causes them to stick together. But otherwise, just use the white paper, and you don't have to use the baby powder. And now we're going to put together our screen. So here are all the pieces. So first we've got to push on the top and bottom. I'll find a little bit of wax if the fits are nice and tight. You don't need glue, just a little bit of wax on the lugs can help it to slip together more smoothly. It's just regular candle wax from the supermarket. And make sure they're in as far as you can get them. It helps with the accuracy of the images and screens once they're inside. And now we'll put on one of the ends. And now our little panel for rigidity inside, that should slide right in. And we won't put on the end one until we've got our images and screens tucked inside. So let's go and cut those. You can lay your screen over before you cut it out, just to see how much sort of bleed you might need, whether it's lining up nicely with the edge of that black border. And this looks like it is. So as long as I cut to the edge of the black border, then I should be fine. But you might like to cut a little bit extra, and always then you can remove slithers off if it's a bit too tight, because you don't want it too loose to wobble to and fro. You don't want it so tight that it buckles when it's inside there. So I put the ruler down just so I got a slight vision of that line. And use a craft knife to cut that off. Right, now let's just test this out before we cut the other side off. There's not too much wiggle there. And then we just see where this other line's appearing. It looks like it's just appearing where it needs to be, so we can cut right on the edge of that line. There we go, and check there's no side to side wiggle of this image layer, because that one must be snug and unmoving inside. Alright, and at any point you can change this out for another design later on. Now let's do the screen that goes with it. And test this out as well. Make sure your image underneath is fully to the edge. Tuck it under the frame there. There we go. And then slide it across till the no appears, and see where this other line ends up. So there's another line there that has to be, the screen has to be trimmed a bit shorter on this inner line, and the extremal point of that inner line should be sufficient. Alright, and put a finger here to check that when you slide it across it stops at the right point. Alright, so now before we put our end cap on, we can do the other side with the rabbit and the bird. Alright, our dove and rabbit, so our rabbit and our dove are now in there as well, so let's put on the end cap. I try to make these a nice tight fit so that you don't need glue, so that if you want to make changes to the internal images you can take them off and put something different inside. But make sure you get it all the way down. If you do want to take it off, use a tool like a small flathead screwdriver, and you can then get it in and pry off by twisting it slowly, taking care not to damage anything, but that helps you get this end piece off. Let's have a look at this in slow motion so you can see what's happening. So we slowly slide the screen across until it lines up with the other image. And ideally, these stoppers at each end help you to get that lining up perfect. If not, then you can do your trick a bit more slowly and just give it a shake to sort of mask the anyone seeing that your fingers are sliding back and forth. So do you want to make one of these yourself? No? Yes? I'd be curious to see what you come up with. So follow the link below to order the posted kit or the plans, or go to contraptioncart.com. Thank you.